And with that newscast lead in, we are finally ready to go live, much to the delight of a few, maybe many by the time the show is over with. I am N2 Nick Sisson, and that is Matt Evans of Evans Rankings, joining you 6 minutes past the hour, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, to bring you everything that we think is important in the land of high school football in the state of Washington. Matt, how are you, buddy?
Oh, man, I am good. It is playoff time, and, my phone is ringing off the hook with people having questions, and I can't blame them. I have a bunch of questions, too.
Yeah, if you need to take a call or if you need to phone somebody in, we can have guests up here via video if they need to or if they'd like to. So we'll just keep that out there.
Tonight may be my Adam Schefter moment.
Yes. Yeah, and that's actually just fine. Yeah, you should totally become the Washington State version of Adam Schefter. But yeah, dude, you said it all right there in the lead. I mean, it's playoff time, baby. There's crossovers going on right now. Matt King is smiling this weekend as he's on crossover duty in the Puget Sound area. Shout out hashtag Matt King hates N2. But yeah, I didn't realize how many crossovers and playoffs there were going to be just this week alone. And, it's like you said, we're getting updates by the minute. And I've had people reach out to me as well, Matt, as I'm sure they've reached out to you too, because whatever I've heard, I know you've heard before me. But there's a lot of people that are still scratching their heads, wondering what is going on. I mean, you're doing, the bulk of the work trying to figure it all out. But it seems like, if I could just speak candidly, it just seems like that everyone's going off the seat of their pants right now. We really just don't have like a definitive clear cut. This is how it's going to be, right? So maybe we can, learn something new throughout the show, even by the time we get to the end of it.
Yeah, this week's been kind of crazy because I shouldn't say this week, just the last few weeks since we got the allocations. It's been really interesting because I think a lot of people, myself included, just figured that your round of 32 or round of 24 was going to be basically whatever your district was allocated times 2. Made sense, right? That's what made sense to me. And so I think a lot of folks were kind of going off of that. And it's kind of, after the Coaches Association and the WIA kind of got together and kind of actually solidified what the splits were, we got some numbers that I think some people still don't know. Like, for example, I mean, 1A District 4 has been just wild to me. Like, I projected at first once the bids came out, in a 16-team tournament or a 12-team tournament for in their circumstance now, they were going to get 4 in. And so I think we all just assumed they were going to get 8. Well, once the numbers were officially crunched and everything, they got 7. And I have gotten so many questions, and I've had so many questions. I've literally asked probably, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 different people, and I've gotten literally 5, 6, 7 different answers. So I've reached out to the committee and like, hey, what do you guys have? What is it that you guys are going off of? Because I want to kind of try and make sure we're I'm consistent with those guys. But yeah, I still haven't gotten a straight answer, to be honest with you. I've heard from some people that Evergreen's getting 3. I've heard some people, that's what I was under the understanding of. I've heard that Trico's getting 4. I've heard Trico's getting 5. I've heard that they think they're getting 8 seeds, but they're only getting 7 berths. So the only way math works out is if Trico 5 and Evergreen 3 play a crossover on Tuesday. There's a lot, and I'm not sure that anybody really knows exactly what's going on right now, myself included.
Hopefully somebody does. Yeah, I reached out to an athletic director from Trico 1A, and they state they're getting 5. No pigtail game needed. And that would mean I looked at the WSCA, the coaches thing that it does the rankings and stuff, and it had 8 listed for Trico.
No, they had 7.
4. You sure about that? Because I think I can pull it.
I'm 100% sure I've got the document right in front of me right now, and I can actually share it this time.
I don't believe you.
Let's see. Yep, right here. Thank you, of course, for sharing. 1A football, D4, 7 year 1, 7 year 2. Should be breakdown should be 3 out of District 1, 2 out of District 2, 3 out of District 3, 7 out of District 4, 7 out of District 5, and 2 out of District 6 for 24.
Isn't that just, yeah, well, something's going to happen. You know that much. Whether we're right or wrong, who knows? Something's going to happen.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
Well, hopefully we figure it out by Sunday. I think that's going to be like the most likely scenario. But anyway, yep. Who knows? Here's the bottom line, right? If you're playing this weekend, which most of you are, win your football games.
Exactly.
That's going to be like the most critical thing possible, because I did a write-up for our power rankings, and there could have been a lot on the line for this Castle Rock Kalama game, for instance, coming up here, because Kingsway just beat Kalama. Just beat Castle Rock. So that could, if Castle Rock were to beat Kalama, that could mean a 3-way tie. Then there would be 5 spots. But if what you're saying is true, then if the math doesn't math, you know what I mean? Like, the only way for the math to work in that scenario is if Trico gets 5, then that would mean Evergreen gets 2, or there has to be a crossover game, right? So it'd be nice to know that if you do find yourself in a 3-way tie, that you're playing a crossover game, or you're safe. Either way, you'd like to know these things.
Yeah, because that's the thing is, like you're saying here, if there's, if it's just 4, there's a chance that Kalama and Kalama Castle Rock, that's a head-to-head to get in. I mean, Kingsway has Fort Vancouver. I'm fairly certain they're going to win that game. So, then it's just kind of, it's going to be nuts. What else can you say? Just, we thought we had everything figured out, and we still know nothing.
There are certain things we do know. Let's not completely discount ourselves here. We know something. We know outside of everything that's playoff projection based, there are going to be some really exciting Week 9 finales that may or may not determine playoff berths. They may determine league champions. Most likely will determine league champions. So that much we do know. And I'll just say this: if you have any updated information, tag us on Twitter or tag us on Facebook, and
especially especially if you are in 1A D4, or if you are a member of the Metro League. Message me, like DM me or text me if you have my number. If you don't have my number, get it from Ryland Spencer or Todd Millis.
Breaking news, since we have some, officially Spanaway Lake has been eliminated from playoff contention. This via John Manley on Twitter. Olympia has clinched a playoff spot, and then Bethel, having beaten Spanaway Lake, they will now play a loser out game this week. So that is coming in right now.
So that means your matchups there would be, let me pull it up real quick. So that means that for SPSL 4A, you're looking at, that means Olympia's the 3. So Olympia, Puyallup, or wait a minute, are they doing 3-4? I think they're doing 3-4. It could be Olympia, Curtis, and then Bethel, Puyallup, and then Spanaway Lake would take on Rogers in a non-league, doesn't matter game, really.
But that kind of just feeds into the week of mystery, we'll call it. It's a great week of mystery too, because it's Halloween week, Matt. It's spooktacular football action this week, and it's scary that we don't know who the teams are that are going to be advancing to the postseason in a couple different places. And then we've got, like you said, Metro League crossover playoffs going on, and you got South Puget Sound League crossovers going on literally tonight. And then we've had a few games moved already as well. Virtually every game in CWAC was moved to Thursday night, I think, except for one. and that's just to accommodate potential tiebreakers.
Mhm.
And in order to get into these mystery bids that we think we know about, but we don't know about. So this much we do know about there. In CWAC 2A, Othello ended up defeating Topnish this last week and didn't muddle it up at the top of the league, at least. They're going to finish the regular season as the league champion, which is good for the Huskies. The only Huskies, it seems, to be winning games lately. Mm-hmm. And then Skips in the live stream comment section says all of the SPSL 2A games were moved to tomorrow, Wednesday. So, again, it's like the calm before the storm here, Matt. If there's any good news, which, I mean, I can find a couple things here. For number one, we get more football. Number two, they don't have to play full games. Most of these are going to be Kansas City tiebreakers. But in the case of like Greater State Hounds League for the 2A class, they're going to play a complete game that's 12-minute halves, so essentially 2 quarters of football. But that's a little bit different than the Kansas City tiebreaker. You're actually going to see punting potentially, unless Mark Morris is involved. But yeah, it's crazy on the amount of games that we're going to get squeezed in here. I talked to one source today. It was like, we got to remember, these are high school, kids that are out here playing and stuff. And like, I gave all my energy and all my effort in the game that we played Friday night because we needed to win it, or, it was a rivalry game. And then I woke up the next day dead, so it's tough for these kids to manage that emotional output to their physical output and then come back with something else on the heels of that almost immediately.
Yeah, it's going to be wild to have so many games this week and potential for so many tiebreakers on Saturday. Like you said, potential for a couple SPSL tiebreakers. I think depending on how results go, there's a potential 3, 4, or even 5-way tiebreaker in CWAC, and it's just going to be a crazy day. It's a crazy week of football.
Well, let's talk a little bit here about some other things besides crazy football. I mean, we'll just start with what we know. And I'm going to just go to Tom real quick here first. 52-0 on the road against WF West. And we tried to keep it interesting last week, which, obviously there's no high school sports, book, which there should be in the state of Washington. But we tried to handicap, that game a little bit, about 23, 24 points for Tumwater. I mean, man, I didn't realize that we were that light. I mean, Tumwater comes in and absolutely smacks WF West down. And I think that we've had no issues determining how good Tumwater is this year. But we've had issues gauging how good WF West is. I think that this is one of those games to where not only are you losing late in the season for the first time, you're losing big, and you're losing at home, and you're not scoring. I think it was a real tough weekend for the Bearcats against Tumwater.
Yeah, I think it was too, but I think that it just kind of shows that it confirms what we knew already, that Tumwater is head and shoulders above the rest of 2A, and that WFS is kind of in that next third tier, probably behind Anacortes, Franklin Pierce, Linden, Archbishop Murphy. I'll even put them in there, but I think that kind of shows that they're going to be in that next kind of dark horse tier for making a run at state.
Also sticking in District 4, we had a monumental game last week in Onalaska, between Onalaska and Toledo. Again, I'm sticking with the same theme here. This was not a good loss for the Riverhawks of Toledo here. I mean, Onalaska had a loss coming into this ball game here. We knew that they were a good, solid team, but at the same time, I don't know if this is more indicative of Onalaska being really good or Toledo not being quite as advertised. If you had to gauge that spectrum, where would you land?
I think it just proves how good Onalaska is. I mean, they play a brand of football that that can win in any element and can win almost in every style. I mean, they're They're going to line up. They're going to hit you in the mouth a couple times. And if you can't respond, you can't respond. I think if anything, this just shows that Onalaska's, it's just confirmed that they're top 4 at least, maybe even a top 3, maybe even a top 2 team going into the state tournament. If they don't slip up next week, which I don't see that happening.
No, we're gonna save our rankings here for a little bit later, and so we won't spoil where we actually think teams are at the moment here. But with that said, James commented and said something about, we said the Wesco 4A was good, but it's not because Lake Stevens has beaten everybody. I don't think that that's a barometer test, James, for the league not being good. Outside of Mariner and Cascade, Everett, every team in that league is 5-3 or better. Just because the 2-time defending state champs beat everybody doesn't mean that they're automatically bad.
So. Yeah, and Arlington has a win over the Kinko champions. So, I mean, you know, I think Arlington has proved that they are, you know, they are one of the top teams in 4A. Then again, I think that like we've talked about for weeks, everybody after 3 from like 3 to 4 to like 27 is just like all really, really close together.
And yeah, well, I mean, to that testament too, Matt, we've both been on the Bothell Cougars as of late. Mm-hmm. And Bothell looks to be a team that's going to be the 4A Kinko representative from Tier A. You know, they just turned in another win over the weekend, and they've already got head-to-head over Skyline, who they're tied with in the standings. And I think that, you know, what we've been talking about the last couple of weeks is that testament to how deep and how good the 4A class really is, because I think Bothell is going to be severely underrated by the seating committee, probably rightfully so, honestly, just because of their total body of work. But there's going to be some team that plays them that's not too happy, Matt.
Yeah, and more than likely they're going to have to go on the road to them too. Being a league champion, I don't see how, even at 4-4, I don't see how you send them on the road. I just don't.
No. Yeah, it's a crazy situation in 4A, you know, and we had another game last week. I don't really want to call it an eliminator game, but the Gonzaga Prep and the Meade game was close, 28-21 Gonzaga Prep. I don't think it helped us to definitively know like who the better team is here. A 7-point game, you know, it indicates they're either both really, really good, or they're both kind of middle of the road, or maybe they're both not so great comparatively to the West Side here. But, you know, I think that Meade's going to probably get the short end of the stick by the time we get to the seating committee. I think their ceiling is probably somewhere in that 11-10 range based on that result against Gonzaga Prep. They just don't have like a huge strength of schedule, you know, RPI wins over there on that side. So,
yeah, it doesn't help that they have a 10-team league and they're not going to play any non-leagues. It's kind of, I think we're going to see similar to like the SPSL was dealing with the last, you know, 5-6 years of, you know, how can you really measure them up against everyone else in the state if they're only playing in a little bubble?
Yeah, exactly. You know, and that's what kind of happens with those hybrid leagues. You know, I don't want to group the Mid Columbia into that conversation, but you know, they do play, you know, the 3A schedule as well as the 4A schedule, and you're really only going to see 2 games outside of conference all season long. Yeah. You know, that's not really a huge measuring stick, but, you know, they make it work, you know, trying to schedule as many good teams as they possibly can. For instance, Kamaya can come into play in Yelm this year. Mm-hmm. That was a good game to schedule. It's I got Preston in the background just losing his mind right now. Oh man,
mine too.
Yeah, no, that's well, for everybody who doesn't know, which you probably do know, we're both parents, and we're both parents of toddlers or infants, so it's awesome. So yeah, it was a pretty interesting week this last week. That Roosevelt O'Day game kind of looked pretty tight early on, and even at halftime, it wasn't like, you know, out of the realm of a close game. It was only like an 8-point game, 21-13 at halftime, but O'Day ends up winning that one and becomes the Metro League champions. they've really put it together this year. I was impressed that Roosevelt was able to score on them first and get to 21 on the scoreboard. But not too many teams have been able to get on the scoreboard against O'Day this year. That defense is probably one of the best in the state. I think that at this point, Matt, in 3A, I'm pretty dead set on seeing a Bellevue O'Day matchup at some point.
Oh, me too. I think that, I would like to see, honestly, I want to see Roosevelt match up with O'Day Roosevelt match up with Bellevue in the semifinals. If seeding works out the way it does, I want to see Roosevelt on the same side of Bellevue. We've seen Roosevelt play O'Day. We've seen them play Eastside Catholic. I want to see him play Bellevue. That's, I think that right there, I think it'd be an awesome game. I really do. And, O'Day, Eastside Catholic on the other side would be a fun one potentially. But I think, I'd want to see. That's the one I'd want to see.
Yeah, I think that we should play a little game here for just a second. I like playing games, by the way. 3A game here. So who would you seed higher is the game, all right?
Okay.
This isn't where we got them ranked, but this is where you think that we would seed them right now. Obviously, we can't project who they're going to play this week here, right? Who would you seed higher, Roosevelt or Monroe?
I would still have Roosevelt seated higher.
Who would you seed higher, Roosevelt or Kennewick?
I would have Roosevelt seated higher.
Who would you seed higher, Roosevelt or Lakes, undefeated?
I'd have Roosevelt seated higher.
See, you're proving my point here. I think that most people, right, think, including myself, I think that Roosevelt is, probably a top 5 team still, even though they've got 3 losses. I think that who they've lost to speaks volumes as to what we think of them as a whole. Like, Enumclaw with 1 loss, Evergreen with 1 loss, Lincoln of Tacoma, a couple losses. But if you ask me, I don't think that any of these teams are seated ahead of where Roosevelt will end up being. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't be completely shocked, Matt, because here's the thing. If you want that scenario to where Bellevue's going to match up on the Roosevelt side, Roosevelt's going to match up on the Bellevue side, I think only in order to accommodate that is Bellevue at the 1, and Roosevelt's got to be in the 8-9 matchup.
Not necessarily. Roosevelt.
You think you could justify them being at the 4-5?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I think right now they would be below the 5 spot, but depending on how their crossover goes and the last chance to impress, I think they maybe could work themselves up there.
I don't know. I mean, if you really think about it, just look at who they, like you said, who have they lost to? Their 3 losses are to O'Day, who we think is a clear top 2 team in 3A. Eastside Catholic, who is, a top 5
who
team,
they had beat,
who they had beat, who they should have beaten, and then a touchdown loss to the top team in 4A. I mean, why wouldn't you seed them 4? Why wouldn't you seed them in that 4-5? I think it's a no-brainer, to be honest with you. I mean, I look at Monroe, and they have 1 loss, and they have a pretty solid strength of schedule. I look at Lakes and Decatur; they're both unbeaten, but I wouldn't write home to mom about those schedules. I think Roosevelt's proved themselves as a top 5 team. I do.
Nice. To be determined. I like looking forward to Selection Sunday still, by the way.
Me too.
I want to talk a little bit in the 1A class here. I think the result from last week that had us all shook to the core was a word that rhymes with shook, and it's Nook. Nooksack Valley losing on the road to Montesano.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about this one. I mean, on the surface, I want to be surprised that Montesano won the game. I do. I want to be surprised. But if you dig deeper into the matchup, Montesano was missing one of their top players heading into the year. And he missed the first 4 games of the season, I think, or 5 games of the season. And since he's come back, they've obviously been, a better ball club. But I'm having a hard time getting over that Rochester loss for Montesano. I really am. It's hard for me to get past it. I want to give all the credit to Montesano here, but I'm going to probably piss off Justin Tomaszewicz and say Nooksack just maybe didn't play to their normal level here in this one. I'm not trying to take anything away from Monty. This isn't the Monty Gate show. It's a non-conference game for Nooksack Valley late in the year, and they've got a league championship game coming up the following week against Linden Christian. I think that there's a lot to be thought of in terms of where your focus is at in that one, but it really wasn't like a blowout 34-28. And Montesano is a tough place to play. Napavine's lost at Montesano this year, so outside of La Center going in there and beating them, it's a really difficult place to play.
I think this was more of I think it was a better win for Montesano. I think it has more of the win is better for Montesano than the losses for Nooksack. Like I don't see this loss for Nooksack being something that has too big an effect on them, to be honest with you. I think that if it was, more than a 10-point loss, maybe a 2-possession game loss, maybe, but a 6-point loss on the road against a very good program in Montesano, who's scheduled extremely tough, who has played tough teams. I don't see, I don't think it knocks Nooksack down as much as some people may think.
No, I agree with you. And again, we're going to save our top 10 rankings for later.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I think that these games like this, these non-league games late in the year, I'm not saying they don't do anything for me, but I have a hard time believing, just from talking with coaches, right? Like, coaches don't want to blow their wad and show everything late in the year when they're taking on somebody league. They want to try to, like, for instance, I'm going to use Kalama as an example here, right? If this was a playoff game this last week between Kalama and La Center, if it was do or die for the season, could Aiden Brown have played? Maybe. He was in pads. He was an emergency guy if needed, right? But you just don't need to. You don't need to jeopardize that. You don't need to show everything. You don't need to risk it all. There's a bigger game to be played ahead. And if you can go down there and you can get some stuff on film, you can try some stuff out that you've been thinking about working on. You can show some teams some different things on film. I think it's I'm not gonna say throwaway game, but it's definitely a game that you can just leave and flush and move on to the next week. And I don't think that it hurts Montesano or Nooksack Valley that much at all. I'll just leave it at that. I think it's fine. I think it's a bigger win for Montesano for sure. I think it helps them because their season's been kind of up and down all year long. And coming off the heels of a game against Rochester where pretty much everybody in the area is making fun of them, no offense Rochester here, but yeah, it was a bad loss that week for Monty. So let's see. I'll defer to you real quick. I feel like I've been leading the dance a little bit here. Why don't you lead the dance for this next step? You tell me what's on your mind.
Just a couple things. I want to point out a couple games that took place over here, that some results that I think kind of sent some shockwaves around the state. Let's start up at the 4A, 3A level. How about the Kamaikan Braves 7-6 over Kennewick in a very, very, very good defensive struggle. Hard-fought football game. The only touchdown for Kamaikan being a pick six. It was either a pick six or a fumble return. It was a defensive touchdown. But yeah, I don't think anybody had that one on their scorecard. I know I had a buddy at the game who was texting me updates, and he texted me 7-6 and then didn't text me for a while. And I thought that maybe his phone died, and I popped onto NFHS to catch the last 2 minutes of the game. Just like, oh my God, that's crazy. But yeah, big one there. I think that was it's a huge win for Kamaikan. They absolutely needed that, building some more momentum going to this game against Richland this week. Thursday night, Lamson Stadium, Kamaikan, Richland. Winner gets into the round of 32. Loser has to play Lewis and Clark on Tuesday in a play-in game. It's going to be a crazy atmosphere over at Lamson. All the kids in their Halloween costumes. It's going to be fantastic. As for Kennewick, it's going to be really interesting now to see how far they fall. I mean, in the seating committee's eyes now, they have that loss to Chiawana, which Chiawana is, a really good team up in 4A, and now they have a loss to a Kamaikan team who is starting to, come on at the right time. So is that loss going to be one that pushes them back behind Monroe, behind Lakes, behind Decatur, behind Lincoln, behind Enumclaw? How far is this going to have them fall? So that's going to be really interesting to see. And then the last one I want to talk about, let's go down to the 1B rank. a game that just I'm still in shock over this result. We had DeSales come in to play Liberty Christian down here, and Liberty Christian won 58-0 in an 8-man game. They shut out an undefeated DeSales team. Like, yeah, I thought the game was I thought the score was a typo when I saw it, and then I got the confirmation from 3 different people that it was a shutout, and I'm still just in shock over that. I mean, the Patriots are just like, this is the year, man. I mean, I've been a big fan of Coach Lukens for years. He's been someone who's been very supportive of Evan's rankings since my first year on the seating committee. And I'm really excited for those boys over there. They've got themselves a really, really fun Southeast 1B district championship game or league championship game this weekend against Pomeroy at Fran Rish on Friday night. Hopefully we'll be there for the first half of it, but just another game to possibly solidify their number 1 seed down there in 1B and just start that path to a state championship.
Yeah, in the same neck of the woods, not necessarily geographically, but at least in the classification. Wilbur Crescent and Keller comes away with a win against Elmira Cooley Heartline in the battle of tri-hyphenated teams. And WCK looks pretty tough this year. And, Liberty Christian, I think I think most people had them pegged as the number 1. That was a real true statement win right there, and I think that if you're DeSales, you gotta go back to the drawing board real quick, and you gotta figure out a way to burn that film. I mean, obviously you want to learn from it. Right? You want to look and you want to see what your opponent's doing to you and why it's so successful. But it's hard to put that on the board for kids. I mean, it sounds like that just wasn't their day, wasn't their night. You gotta hope that you can regroup and you can just survive and advance at this point. And I think a lot's going to depend for them as to ultimately where they end up in the bracket, and that kind of will determine how far they can go. Because if I'm looking at the 1B, I mean, I'm looking at WCK, I'm looking at ACH, I'm looking at Nia Bay, I'm looking at Nacelle. Even Odessa. I think that's a team that's going to maybe come in as a lower end seed. And by lower end in that 7-6, 7-8 range, and I think that they're going to win some games, and their team I think could contend for beyond a quarterfinal berth. So the 1B ranks were pretty eye opening. I mean, also you throw in the Tulalip just getting absolutely waxed as well by Nia Bay. I mean, they came in undefeated. I had them at number 10 last week. Where they're at this week, I don't know. But, I think that it lends a lot of credibility to Nia Bay and your perception of Nia Bay. I'll admit you've been all on is it the Devils, I think, all year long?
Red Devils. Yep, the Red Devils.
Yep. I like it. Yeah.
I have had years where I've not been on Nia Bay, and I'm kind of like, I'm just waiting to see. And then they go win the state championship, and I feel bad. And so this year I was like, you know what? I'm going to stick with them, and I'm just going to stick with them and they haven't proved me wrong yet.
No. I want to comment real quick on the Kennewick game with Kamiakin. Huge win for Kamiakin. Yeah. If you couple in the fact that Kamiakin still has a big game coming up this week, yep, and then they had a close loss to Yelm on the road earlier, and you get this win against Kennewick. I think it's going to help them a lot, but I'm not going to play the does it help or hurt this team more. Because I think this loss equally hurts Kennewick. I really do. I mean, this is just a bad time for them because they barely beat Richland as well. I get it. They barely lost this game, but they offensively have not put together enough. They have got to be better. They've got to be a little bit more diverse in their attack. They are very lenient or heavy on the run, I should say. It spells a tough situation in 3A. There's a lot of teams that are multi-dimensional, and Kennewick's going to really, really have to figure out what their identity is going forward, and they're going to have to write it. They're going to have to do the remember the Titans deal. They're going to have to just run the same couple plays over and over and, not try to get outside of their element, because it's going to be a tough finish, I think, for Kennewick. That loss is going to throw them into a situation where they're going to run into a tough round of 16 game, and they're going to definitely run into a tough quarterfinal game if they're lucky to get there.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see where they fall there for round of 32, and they have themselves. Let's see, who do they play? I think they play Pasco this week. Let me take a look. I can't remember off the top of my head. They've got Hermiston this week. Okay, yeah, so they've got Hermiston this week, so they should be able to kind of get things tuned up and finally tuned and ready to go for a week 10, and yeah, it's going to be an interesting matchup to see, who they get, and they're going to have to, whoever it is going to have to come down to Lamson, and that's, and playing Kennewick at Lamson isn't the easiest thing to do, but yeah, should be it's going to be interesting to see how they can get themselves prepared for that.
No, absolutely. They just don't have a 3A opponent that you can look at on their schedule and be like, this is definitive. This is a great win, right? In league, Southbridge is the next closest 3A team that they've got.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously losing to teams that are 4A isn't the worst thing in the world, but there's plenty of teams in 3A that are able to take on the biggest and the baddest in the 4A land and come away with wins. And I'm not going to make any excuses for anybody, especially at this time of the year, but I think that it's definitely Kennewick needs to figure out who they are, and they need to do it quick. Hermiston's a game that, you're not really going to learn a whole lot about yourself at this point in the year, right? They're 0-8. You're going to hopefully put something together that makes you feel good heading into the week. You're going to hope you're a home team, which I think they will be. I don't think that there's any doubt about that. I think that they'll actually be a home team for the first 2 weeks in playoffs. I don't think that's really in jeopardy. But I don't think that Kennewick is looking for just being a home team and just getting a couple of favorable matchups. With the results that they've put in over the last couple of years in the postseason, there's plenty of reason for optimism, Matt. There really is. There's so much on the tape that they could look at over the last couple of years and say, guys, we are 1 or 2 plays away from being in the state championship game. Who knows? Maybe winning it. They've played O'Day extremely tough over the last couple of playoff times they've matched up with them. I think that they really have a belief system and have the structure. But
they do.
What's it going to take? Yeah. What's it going to take? I think it's a testament, though. I'm gonna add to it. I think that the 4A MCC is super tough this year. I think that with what we've seen with Richland against Skyview and against Skyview playing an emotional game that week, really tough for them. Richland only loses that one by 7. Chiawana basically undefeated in the state of Washington. Kamai can make the travel to go over to Yelm. I think it's really good. I think it's a really tough league. So it may not be that bad for Kennewick.
Yeah, and they have, they're coached by Randy Affolter, who just wins everywhere he goes. He was up in Ellensburg before he came down here, and that was back when Ellensburg was practically the only team throwing the ball in on this side of the state. And he's gone down to Kennewick, and he's turned that program into a very solid program. So yeah, it's going to be I'm really excited to see what they can do, what their draw is going to look like, and how they can come out and hopefully make another deep run for the Tri-Cities here.
This is a great comment here from Bolston Sports. Just giving you some perspective on the Chiawana program. 23-1 against the Mid-Columbia over the last 3 years. 8-1 against Kennewick, Kamaiak, and Richland. It would be nice if those boys can make a little run. The truth is, Matt, the only thing that's standing in their way is the depth of the 4A class. Now, at this point, can they endure? It's going to be a battle of attrition when it comes to 4A. Survive and advance is the name. I don't even think you have to hope for matchups in that class. I think that whoever you get is going to be a tough game.
Yeah, it's really comes down to luck of the draw. That really is what it comes down to. It's, it's like we've said, they're gonna be some top 16 teams. They're gonna pull like Eastmont, Emerald Ridge, Spanaway, not Spanaway Lake anymore, but like Puyallup Stadium. There are some really, really, really tough teams down there that are going to be playing road games in Week 10. And like we said last week, I'm setting the line at 4.5. I think there's going to be more than 4.5 upsets in 4A in Week 10. I think the road teams are going to win 5 games. I would not be surprised to see that. It's just it's just a testament of the just the amount of quality football that's being played up here.
Yeah, no, for sure. 4.5 might not be high enough.
Mm-hmm. Seriously,
it's going to be crazy, honestly. Okay, so we touched on a couple different leagues, couple different classes. I wasn't really looking at anything too surprising other than what we've already talked about, I would say. I wanted to mention that the Life Christian game against Enumclaw, it was a loss for Life Christian last week, and I think there's a lot of things that we really don't quite know with them in terms of gauging the 1A class. However, only losing by a few touchdowns on the road to Enumclaw really isn't that bad. And I think that they're a team that's going to be a mystery, but I don't think they're a team that hurt themselves too much with their show and playing a game 2 classes late in the year. And they have a win over a team that's looked super impressive. Now, when we get to our rankings here in a little bit, Matt, I just want to preference by saying that there's a team in 2B that nobody's going to want to match up with. I'm just saying that, right? But other than what we know, right? And any coach who knows how to coach knows exactly who I'm talking about probably right now. So with that being said, I wanted to just mention a quick thing. Seaholm last week put the wood to Squalicum. So Seaholm is looking as good as anybody. They've got a chance this week against Archbishop Murphy to throw everything into a tizzy up in the Northwest 2A in terms of determining first, second, third. However, it's moot. Like, there does not need to be any league championship tiebreakers at this point. At that point, just put it in the committee's hands, stay healthy, play your game, and hope for the best. That's really all that you can do, because you're going to have you could potentially have Anacortes, Linden. They'd be the 2 teams there, but Archbishop, already in a 3-way tie, they could lose that game easily, and it could be just Anacortes is the champion via tiebreaker against Linden. But I think that conference is so indicative of matchups, like just how teams play against one another. How they play against everybody else, that's going to be a completely different story, because I think that you could have them go 4-0 in the crossover round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
completely agree with you there. It would not shock me at all. And if they, if it were next year when I think they get 5, I could see all 5 of them winning. I mean, it's just
bad news for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. The football that's being played up there is just it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing, and it's great to see Archbishop Murphy take that next step up and assert themselves back into the conversation. It's good to see a team like Seaholm at 6-2 who's able to play in the postseason because of what we're doing now, and it's going to be. I think that what we're going to see from the Northwest Conference this year and next year in both, I say in both 2A and 1A, I think it's going to be similar to what we've seen from the Kinko in the last few Kinko 4A in the last few years, where they just absolutely run just wild over the West Side crossovers, and you'd get 5-6 Kinko teams into the dance. I think that's what you're going to see from Northwest this year. I would not be surprised if all 7 teams that make it from 2A and 1A make it through.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, that's another thing about this whole playoff figuring out equation is the ramifications it's going to have for next season in terms of bids increasing, bids decreasing, more things to learn about. Lots of fun. All right. I wanted to move on real quick to our rankings. And I'll say this. I had a lot of fun doing this week. I really did. When we get to this class, I'll tell you, I was really having a tough time figuring it out. I'm going to be honest with you. I really was. So let's start from the bottom, Drake style. Who should go first? 1B.
So do you want to do 4A last, or do you want me to do 4A last?
It don't matter. We're both gonna have rankings. It don't matter.
All right, I'll start. Let's go. I'll do the 1B first. All right.
Okay.
So this week I have a surprise team jump in. Last week, I had Welpen in at 10, and they lost convincingly to Odessa. So I ended up dropping them out. My number 10 team is Garfield Palouse, even though they're 4-4. I think that's a strong 4-4. Number 9, I've got Entiat. Number 8, I've got DeSales. 7, I've got Odessa. 6, I've got Pomeroy. 5, I've got Elmira Cooley Heartline. 4, Wilbercrest and Keller. 3, Nacelle. 2, Nia Bay. 1, Liberty Christian.
Okay. Be sure to share everybody with your friends and family, your players. Let them know we're talking about them specifically and where we think that they are ranked in the hierarchy of the state of Washington per a classification determined by size of school enrollment. 1B for me, Matt. I didn't really have any surprise moves here in entering the top 10, even though Toledo Heritage, sorry, I got to pick this up, lost very big. I'm not looking too far outside of where the top 10 was at. I looked at Kill Scene here at this point, but kept them out. And I think Toledo Heritage is still solid here at 10. And then Sales drops all the way down to 9. I got Odessa at 8, NT at 7. I, too, have Pomeroy at 6. I got Myra Cooley Heartline at 5. Nia Bay at 4. Nacelle 3. Wilbercrest and Keller with the big win at 2, and then Liberty Christian at number 1. And I think that it's as solid as it can be at number 1 there in 1B right now. But ultimately for me, last week I had Nacelle at 2, and I had Wilbercrest and Keller at 3. And I think that the win, if you gauge between the two, I think it's the best win of the two teams. It justifies for me having Wilbercrest and Keller above Nacelle at this point. But I don't think the Commons did anything wrong at all. They're just winning their games. They're just in a lower rated league, in my opinion. So
yeah, and you can't choose who you play. You can't choose your league. No. I mean, I think like we both kind of have that same next 3 after Liberty Christian kind of, but I think you can make a case for any one of those 3 being, you could argue Nia Bay at 2, you could argue Nacelle, you could argue WCK. I mean, really, honestly, I think that's the best 4.
Yeah. And it'll probably will work itself out that way. Except I can see a situation here, Matt, because Nacelle doesn't have that tough of a schedule. I could see them running up against an Elmira Cooley Heartline or an Odessa and having a tough time. I can see both of those teams possibly being a tough matchup for the Commons. So
I do like their quarterback, though. I mean, come on,
that's true. Yeah,
you don't. It's not often you see a 6'6" quarterback, at the 8-man level, and I think that's you give him the ball and just let him go. Some of the tiny farm kids up here in the Eastern Washington probably aren't going to, middle linebackers and safeties probably aren't going to be able to tackle him. So that could be a huge thing that Nacelle has going for him. But it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I really want to see Nacelle match up with like an Elmira Cooley Heartland or something. That's a very interesting, they're pretty similar teams style wise, but it'd be really interesting to see just Lindstrom just running downhill against, Carter Pitts and those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's most likely is I think you're going to see Nacelle probably at the 3 spot, maybe the 2. I don't see him dropping all the way down to the 4 or 5 matchup because I think Elmira Cooley Heartline is going to be in that 5 spot, that 4 or 5 spot for sure. I mean, if you want to see that game, I think it could end up happening. Nia Bay does have a lot of reputation, heading into this year. Nacelle not so much, and I think that might be an area where the committee looks at Nacelle and you could see him justify that. Better than anybody. Honestly, they could justify Nacelle being 4 out of that group of 4 there, and then you could have that 4 or 5 against Elmira Cooley Heartline fairly easily. So, let's move on up a little bit to the 2B ranks. At number 10, I got Tri-Cities Prep. Still, I like them right there. This might shock people, but at number 9, I got Toledo. At number 8, Napa Vine. the team nobody wants to play heading out in the playoffs here. Just fresh off of beating PL Wilpa Valley 66-12. To give you some perspective, Toledo beat them 48-29. I'm doing all kinds of Warlock math here, Matt. Napavine has not lost to a school in 2B ranks or lower. They've played a tough schedule so far. Their only losses are to Montesano and Life Christian in 1A. I wanted to put them above this next team. I didn't, because I think that Liberty Bell is a very, very quality team, and I don't just know how that matchup would really go. So I put Liberty Bell at 7, LaSalle at 6, and then ultimately I looked at the LaSalle Goldendale game and the Toledo Goldendale game, and I feel a lot more confident in LaSalle, even undefeated. And that Toledo loss to me was just monumental. Northwest Christian at 5, Freeman at 4. I don't know if it's going to hold this way with the coaches, but I got Onalaska at 3, Asotin at 2, and Okanagan at 1. I would not be surprised, though, to see Onalaska, all the way up to number 2, even with a loss. I really wouldn't.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I like it. I like it. I think I like that addition of Napavine. I do.
I had him in there last week, but I had him at 9. But I put him above Toledo, even with 2 losses. If you ask me head to head, who wins?
Yeah,
I'm going with Napavine.
Exactly. That's how you got to do it, And no shock, I agree with you, and we'll get there. All right, here we go. 2B from the old big brain here. We're going with LaSalle at number 10. I still am holding strong on those Adna Pirates at number 9. I like that. I like those guys. I think that they're kind of like Bothell in my eyes, where I just look at that record and I just go, they're better than 5-3. Number 8, I've got Liberty Bell. Number 7, Northwest Christian Colbert. Number 6, Toledo. Number 5, Napavine. Number 4, Freeman. Number 3, Onalaska. Number 2, Asotin, and number 1, Okanagan.
I like it. I think 2B's a wreck. I really do. I think the top 8 teams, top 9 teams are just like incredibly, incredibly well matched. Outside of Okanagan, I think they're well matched with everybody. But 2 through 9 it's a wreck, man. I don't know who's going to end up coming out of it, but like I said, teams I do not want to play. If it ends in an A, an E, or an N, so.
Basically, if it ends in a vowel or an N, then I don't want to play them.
Exactly. There's a lot of those teams too. So, all right. Now we got to move up to the 1A ranks, Matt.
Yeah, 1A. This is a fun one. This was a fun one this week. I think I may get some heat from our friends over at the scrimmage, but I stand with my convictions here. Number 10, I've got Kalama. Number 9, I've got Kings. Number 8, I've got Montesano. Number 7, Life Christian Academy. Number 6, Linden Christian. Number 5, Kashmir. Number 4, La Center. Number 3, Seton Catholic. Number 2, Nooksack Valley. And number 1, Royal.
Man, Nooksack at number 2, huh?
Mm-hmm. Like I said earlier, I don't think that this loss was too bad. Did much damage to him. I think that overall, their resume. I mean, this is one of those times where you just go, maybe they just got unlucky. I wouldn't ding them. I really wouldn't. I still think that they're the second best team in the state. I do.
Fair. What's up, Justin? Justin says he's here for a few minutes. He picked the right time to show up. Hopefully someone told you. So I believe that you said Kalama at number 10, yes?
I did.
Excellent. Well, starting at the bottom for me, number 10, I got Kalama. Number 9, I got Zilla. Number 8, Linden Christian. Number 7, Montesano. Number 6, Life Christian. Number 5, Nooksack Valley. Number 4, Kashmir. Number 3, La Center. 2, Seton Catholic, and 1, Royal. Look, I'm going to use a formula here that I've been using all year to justify these rankings. I mean, who beat who? And La Center beat Montesano in their house, 35-7. I can't in good conscience think Nooksack Valley's better than them in terms of what their resume is. I know that it's a tough game, but late in the year, and I will say Montesano is a better team right now than they were. But and see, Catholic, I mean, they haven't had a close game all year long, and yeah, some of it has to do with their schedule. Columbia River's not the toughest two-way opponent. Mark Morris on the way up. I'm not going to say they're not a tough team because I think that they have flashes. I think they've got tough moments. I think that they can be a tough team if they put it all together for 4 quarters. But ultimately, man, I mean, I've seen both of these teams three-dimensionally. Seton Catholic has just got a ton of playmakers. I think La Center's got a really good team, though. I think it's interesting to see how the playoffs are going to play out. But, yeah, I don't have a problem with where you're at.
I have a question for you.
I have an answer for you.
I have a hypothetical. First of all, great dad response. Great dad response. I have a hypothetical game. I want to ask you how you see it playing out.
Sure.
Okay, here you go. You ready for this? Neutral site.
Yep.
Neutral site. Okay. Let's say it's at Centralia. That's the one that's a turf field, right?
Yep.
Centralia. Yeah. Okay. So let's say this game's at Tiger Stadium, Centralia.
I'm closing my eyes. I'm imagining.
Okay. Ready? On Alaska, Montesano. Who wins?
Well, I mean, it's a different class,
mm-hmm.
but I would probably go. I'd probably go with Montesano.
How many what's the difference? How many touchdowns?
35-28.
Okay. 35-28. So what if I were to tell you Nooksack Valley went down to Onalaska week 1 and beat them 42-16?
Yeah, no, I remember, and that's the only loss that Onalaska has had. I think that they're in the same boat as Montesano. I think that they've both gotten a lot better throughout the year. The only problem is that Montesano's caught that tripwire called Rochester.
Exactly.
But we talked about this. We didn't make excuses for Montesano, right? But we made excuses for a lot of teams. If you want to group Montesano into the group of teams that you can make excuses for, fine with me.
Yeah.
But it was a torrential downpour that night.
Exactly.
Now, that's an element you're going to have to take into consideration if it goes with you, if it travels during one of these hypothetical neutral site matchups here. But honestly, like, it's just going to be dependent on conditions. And week 1 to week 9, what are we talking about? It's like 2 completely different years. You might as well be talking about 2023 versus 2024.
Yeah, no,
Justin thinks he can handicap this game and thinks he can go 8.5 points here. Montesano. Yeah, I mean, Onalaska is a pretty tough team right now. They thumped the shit out of Cascade Christian and Puyallup on the road just a couple weeks ago. I'm having a hard time. I mean, I think it'll be a real close game. How about that? Yeah. All right.
Sorry.
No, please don't apologize. I love games. I love these games. I think these games is what makes our conversation so much fun. Is the hypotheticals. Where would you lean in this scenario? And honestly, I think that those are the conversations that seating committee members need to have. I think they need to sit there. I think they need to imagine these scenarios. Who would you lean towards? Who do you think should be favored in a situation like that? Who would you pick? And I hope that those are the conversations that are taking place, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, and for me, I mean, the biggest thing just with Nooksack, like I just look at their whole body of work and who they've beaten, beating a great Onalaska team, beating Kings who 5-3, but that's a damn good 1A team right there who's not getting any love. I mean,
Kings is under the radar, Matt.
Yeah, they're flying so under the radar right now. And, I mean, their only losses right now are, to Montesano, who is a great team themselves, and to Tumwater, the best below 3A team in the state. I don't think that, it's one of the reasons why I kept him at 2. I feel like Nooksack they are the second best. They are the cream under Royal. They are the cream. But like you said, this is what's fun. This is why high school sports is fun. This is why what we do is fun. You know, we love watching these teams. We love discussing these games. It's gosh, it gets my blood going, get my heart pumping. Let's go. Love it.
Justin wants to know the spread in the La Center Seton Catholic game. Yeah, Justin, La Center's got a really good kicker. I could see a field goal in this game coming into play. They're the home team. I think I would probably set the spread at La Center -1.5, though. I think that it's going to be a really close game. I really do. And I picked that up on the streaming schedule, by the way, for those that don't know. So free live stream Friday, biggest game in the state. Don't bet on high school sports, says Justin Domashevitz. So, yeah. Anyway, so excited for that.
Here's my question about that. Here's my question about that game. So you said it's at La Center, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a grass field.
It is.
Is it supposed to rain like it was supposed to, like it's forecast to down here?
Yeah, I mean, we did have some rain forecasts. Let's see here. Yeah, it says 89% of rain. Yeah.
I'm going with La Center in that game, and specifically because of the conditions. I mean, specifically, I know that game probably be on our picks, and I'll stick it. But conditions, Seton Catholic's a passing team. If it's raining, that's going to have a huge impact on it. If it's raining, the footing is, your routes aren't going to be clean. There's going to be slippage. So, yeah. I'd lean La Center. Sorry, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves.
No, I mean, whatever. People tuned in. Let's fucking go, man. I mean,
amen.
It's going to be an interesting game. After having watched La Center last week and having seen Seton Catholic week 2, it's not going to be a fair comparison between time frames here. But La Center kind of I'm not going to say they sleepwalked, but they didn't look super crisp and motivated in the first half against Kalama. They did close out the game very strong. Obviously, some butts were chewed in the locker room. But I think that La Center as a whole plays pretty good as a singular unit. I think that Seton Catholic has better individual playmakers. Elements are going to be a big deal in this game. Home field advantage is going to be a big deal. Last year's game was super close. It was 12-0 Seton Catholic, and it was at Seton in the fourth quarter. And La Center scored the final 13 to come away with a big road win. This game is going to be tight, and it's being billed as the biggest game in the history of La Center High School. So there's going to be no parking. And Brian says La Center's 9-0 all time versus Seton Catholic. So it'd be the first win in program history if Seton Catholic gets it done. Oof. Yikes. Spicy. All right. By the way, I'll have that game free on YouTube for everybody Friday. Yeah. 2A. Let's see. That's me. All right. Again, sticking with my theme, Matt, of losing big late in the year doesn't help you. WF West is number 10 for me. Seaholm number 9, Ording number 8, Ridgefield number 7, West Valley Spokane at 6, Archbishop Murphy at 5, Linden at 4, Franklin Pierce at 3, Anacortes 2, and then Tumwater, arguably the best pound-for-pound team in the state right now, number 1.
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. I can't really complain. I'm still not sold on West Valley Spokane. I'm still not sure. I'm not sure about them. I like the undefeated side, but I'm just not 100% sure. I have them just outside the top 10, literally inches outside the top 10. Number 10.
Matt hates West Valley.
Matt hates Spokane. Mark it down.
Hates Spokane.
I've been hating the Spokane Chiefs since 1988. Okay, so I do have an implicit bias against Spokane, but
nice.
It doesn't necessarily go on to the high school teams. It's mostly against their professional teams. Anyways, the West Valley Spokane just on the outside. Number 10, I've got Ording. Number 9, I've got Seaholm. Number 8, I've got Othello. Number 7, WF West. Number 6, Ridgefield. Number 5, Archbishop Murphy. Number 4, Linden. Number 3, Franklin Pierce. Number 2, Anacortes. Number 1, Tumwater.
Mm-hmm. You like Linden above Franklin Pierce? Yeah.
I could make it. I've got Franklin Pierce 3, Linden 4. I can make an argument either way, but I'm kind of, when I'm doing my rankings too, I'm also in the back of my mind thinking about seeding, and I would keep Linden and Anacortes against each other or away from each other until state championship if I could.
Oh, wait a second. This isn't seeding. This is top 10. This is totally different.
I know, but because I've been on the committees, that's where my brain kind of goes, is like, if I have teams that I'm kind of like, I'm not 100% sure about, then seeding mode kicks in and I go, okay, would I want Linden and Anacortes to play in the semifinals? No. Okay. Linden's number 4 if Anacortes is 2. And in all honesty, if you look at my 2B rankings, I'll come back. I'll answer that in just a second. Strategic sport. If you look at my 2B rankings, I've got Liberty Bell 8. Let's just say my top 8 are my. Oh my gosh, never mind. Forget what I just said. So it's. Yeah, let's go back to that question. Does an undefeated 2A SPSL get a top 2 or 3 seed? Yes, I think so. If Franklin Pierce goes unbeaten, they should absolutely get the 3 seed. Absolutely. No doubt about it. I think they've proven it. The only way that I could see them not getting it is if Anacortes gets a number 1 seed. I don't see Linden getting put above them in the seeding committee's eyes, but Franklin Pierce has proved that they are one of the best teams in the state, and I think they absolutely deserve a top 3. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, with regards to where you've got West Valley Spokane, I just feel like that the seating committee is gonna have them a little bit closer to the pin in my regards. I think that they're gonna be somewhere in that 7 to 8 range, or maybe 6 is a stretch. I got them for the rankings purposes of this argument that they're undefeated and Ridgefield's undefeated. For me, in Ridgefield and Ording, I think it's a sliver. Even with Ording having 1 loss, I really don't think that the bottom half, the middle of the Greater St. Helens League is super helpful to Ridgefield. I think that the overall body of work, though, in SPSL, I think it looks a lot stronger, especially to the committee as well as the computer. I think it's razor thin between like Ridgefield and Ording. I think you could make an argument too, Matt, that Seaholm might be more deserving than those 2 teams also. So it's tough. And I know where you're at with WF West, and I think that rightfully so, that they should probably still be in that same loop and that same conversation. But I mean, I'm telling you, man, on the heels of a 52-0 home loss, I mean, that's like not the last impression, but it's close to it. So I think it's tough to overcome that stigma. But Franklin Pierce, I mean, if you look at what they've done to the teams in the top half of their league, yes, they definitely deserve to be a top 3 seed. Will they be a top 2 seed? Absolutely not. There's no way on God's green earth that they're above Tumwater or Anacortes. Not unless Anacortes loses again. But even then, they'd probably have Linden above them at that point. I think that 3 is the absolute ceiling for Franklin Pierce, and I don't think it matters what they do tomorrow night. I really don't even think it matters too much what happens with the other teams that are around them. I just 3 to me is the spot that makes the most sense. Archbishop and Linden both at 4 and 5. I mean, I don't think the committee's going to care at that point. You could probably answer that, but I don't think that they're going to look at those 2 teams and be like, oh, we can't possibly have this team the 4 and this team's the 5. They could end up playing in the quarterfinal round. I mean, when it gets to that point, you're going to have to beat good teams, and if they come from your same league, so be it.
Yeah, no, it's not necessarily. the seeding committee is not going to necessarily. They're not like me. They're not going to look and go, oh, if this team wins, hypothetically, if this team wins and this team wins, they're going to match up here. But if it's a thing where they, where it's not like an egregious thing. Well, let's say, Archbishop Murphy, in my opinion, yes, they are the 5th seed. They should be 5, should be where they go. If that means that they potentially play Linden in the quarterfinals, so be it. I don't think that you can kind of look at. I don't think you can make an argument and say Ridgefield is better than Archbishop Murphy. We should switch them. I don't see that. I would not. I wouldn't be okay with that if that's something that they did do, just to avoid, just to put another, push back a potential Linden Archbishop Murphy matchup again.
Well, a few years ago, Ridgefield was undefeated, and they went and got the 5 seed, and Squalicum had a loss, and they were the 2nd place team out of Northwest, and they were slotted in the 4th spot. So I think the committee's already shown a track record for what they value when it comes from the Northwest Conference. I'll tell you what, out of the teams that are on the list this week, Archbishop's got the most to lose, and Seaholm's got the most to gain. That game head-to-head, Seaholm wins that game, we're talking about them taking the 5 spot at that point.
Yep, 100%.
They're not going to ascend any higher than that, more than likely. But there's a difference between being 8th or 9th and then being 5th. So, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked at all to see Seaholm vault all the way up if they're able to win that game.
Yeah, if Seaholm wins that game, they're 7-2 with probably the 2nd toughest strength of schedule in the top 12. So, I mean, there'd be no reason why they shouldn't be in that 5 seed if they do beat them.
Yeah. Brian says he feels bad for Ridgefield. Very little coverage out of Clark County. But not out of N2 Media of Cowlitz County. That's right, baby. Let's go. Yeah, 7th undefeated regular season in the last 100 years. Wow, I love all this info. This is where you got all of this stored. Brian, my man. Yeah, you're on it, man. Making me feel like that either my memory or my notes aren't quite good enough anymore. But yeah, Ridgefield had beat Montesano, by the way, a team that we think is really good. So yeah, all things said, let's move to 3A. Matt, lead us through your 3A rankings.
3A is very, very it's very simple for me this week. I think I only made one change. I think I switched 2 teams, and ironically, both teams that lost this week. So let's go. Number 10, Enumclaw. Number 9, Lincoln of Tacoma. Number 8, Decatur. Number 7, Lakes. Number 6, Monroe. Number 5, Kennewick. Number 4, Roosevelt. Number 3, Eastside Catholic. Number 2, O'Day. Number 1, Bellevue.
Okay. Before we discuss, I'll just quickly go through and say number 10, Evergreen of Washington. Number 9, Enumclaw. Number 8, Kennewick. Number 7, Monroe. Number 6, Roosevelt. 5, Decatur. 4, Lakes. 3, Eastside Catholic. 2, O'Day. 1, Bellevue. And this is just kind of more about where I think that you might realistically see them seated. I know that Roosevelt and we had that game played earlier. That's why I've got him above Monroe. That's why I've got him above Kennewick. I did throw Lakes in the conversation because I wanted to get your opinion on who you thought would be ranked higher. I'll just go on record and say I think that Lakes would get the benefit of the doubt and probably be seated higher. Well, does that make them a better team though? Not in my opinion. Not really. Remains to be seen. We'll go with that. But yeah, overall, I see that you're not really interested in punishing Kennewick too much.
Nope.
I'm
not. I mean, and to be then the reason why I'm kind of still like Lakes for me, I'm not too sold on them right now is the fact that if you're looking at their schedule, they have 1 win over a team with better than a winning record. They have a couple wins against teams with winning records right now, but the only team that they've beaten who has better than a 500 mark is River Ridge. Other than that, they're all 500 and below. And so I'm still just I'm hesitant to give them that big push. I mean, they do have a big crossover game coming up with Mount Tahoma this week, but the problem with that is they win that game. Mount Tahoma's under 500 and doesn't really help the argument. So I'm looking at that strength of schedule, and it just has me concerned. I'm not 100% certain about that.
Rightfully so, and going off of their RPI ranking and stuff for your computers, I mean 0.68. The next closest team in their league is, like you said, River Ridge at 0.54, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 teams with winning records there, but two, if you consider 500 a winning record, Peninsula and Capital both at 4-4 there. I mean, there's really not anything too overwhelming there. Auburn Riverside in week 1, an 8-point win. Bonnie Lake, a 55-0 win earlier. The one game that does help them a little bit is the Curtis win, 14-10. Curtis, a formidable opponent out of 4A SPSL West. But other than that, like, the league really hasn't tested them a whole lot. I don't know. I feel like that you're still going to probably give them a somewhat of a bone just for their efforts this year, but we'll see. It kind of goes hand in hand with that Ridgefield thing, with 2A. You go undefeated, but your league is ultimately going to hold down your perception a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about 3A earlier. I really don't have a whole lot to add. I think that the level of tiers in 3A is substantially different than you're seeing in the other leagues. And I'm trying not to poo-poo on the other teams in 3A, but to me, Matt, there's a huge difference between the top 5 and then the next 10, the next 15, the next 5, if you want to narrow it down. I really think that there's a pretty wide gap there.
In all honesty, I would say, in my opinion, there's probably, I think there's probably 3 distinct tiers. Probably 4 distinct tiers. I think your top 3, I think Bellevue, O'Dea, Eastside Catholic. I think that's a pretty solid top tier right there. Your second tier, Roosevelt, Kennewick, Lakes, Monroe, Lincoln of Tacoma, Enumclaw, just kind of Decatur too. We'll throw them in there. That second tier of kind of, okay, maybe they can, make a jump up there. Third tier right there, I'd maybe throw a Federal Way in there, maybe Seattle Prep, maybe Evergreen of Vancouver, Oak Harbor 7-1, Mercer Island's undefeated. Maybe I throw them in there, but I think after that, like, it just dives. It just jumps right off the deep end. I don't think the depth of quality that there is in the 4A. I don't see that 3A level. I just think that there are some decent teams down there at that next level, but I'm not seeing anybody that I feel confident saying, yeah, they're going to go in week 10 and knock somebody off. I don't see it.
Yeah, man, I'm with you. Yeah, absolutely. Decatur's got that win over Skyview, which is a good win.
Yep.
That's out of the teams in that second tier, that's the best win that you're going to find. So let's move on up. Let's finally reach the top, baby. We're the Jeffersons right now. 4A, baby. Let's see. That means that's it's you, me, you, me, me. All right. So me, number 10, Meade. Number 9, Graham Kapowson. Number 8, Skyview. 7, Moses Lake. 6, Chiawana. 5, Gonzaga Prep. 4, Kennedy Catholic. 3, Lake Stevens. 2, Sumner. And 1, Camas. The Papermakers continue to roll. They embarrassed their West Camas rivals Union last week. Made it a point to make it a running clock as well.
Well, I'm going to make it easy for everybody. No changes in my 4A top 10. Glacier Peak 10, Chiawana 9, Yelm 8, Graham Kapowson 7, Gonzaga Prep 6, Skyview 5, Kennedy Catholic 4, Lake Stevens 3, Sumner 2, Camas 1. They all won, and I don't see any reason to shift them.
Well, you hated Meade last week anyway, so
very much, as I do all Spokane teams.
Yeah, I had Mead in the I get 7, I think, last week. So,
I got them
but yeah,
13.
no, you also hate Moses Lake too. So
I've got them 11. So I don't hate them
uh,
as much.
you like him? I
I
didn't.
do love their choir program. David Holloway is a gem, and what they're doing to the extracurricular activities up there is a borderline criminal. And when you have one of the best jazz choirs in the state and it gets taken away and the teacher's teaching study hall, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And Moses Lake, you gotta get your crap together. Let's get extracurricular activities funded again.
The
Sorry,
computer loves Moses Lake, Matt.
computer. Yeah,
They're above Sumner by like what 1, 2, 3, 6 what 1,000ths of a point or 10,000ths of a point.
yeah. Computer does like Moses Lake. Computer loves a lot of teams on the east side this year, and kind of have to tell people, hey, yeah, well, it does, I mean, it's just because we've got teams that are, 0-1 losses over here, and you've got a team like Lake Stevens who should be higher, and Graham Kapowsin that are in Skyview with 2 losses that all should be higher than they are, and that's one of the things too when the seating committee members reach out to me and they say, hey, why is Lake Stevens ranked, 8 or whatever it is? I'm like, that's wrong. Computer's wrong there. It just is. Computer is very, very, it doesn't do well when it doesn't do well with the 3A and the 4A class. It just doesn't. It does great with the lower classes, but it always seems to struggle with 3A and 4A, and I honestly don't know. Yeah, not sure what to do with it there, but it's gonna do what it's gonna do, and I'll just continue to say, hey, it's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the computer does love the teams east of the Cascades, which is fine, Matt. I was looking. There's really not a lot of love for Bothell on the computers. They still got Skyline ranked above them, even though Bothell holds a head-to-head against them. So, yeah, who cares? The computer data is not going to help Bothell, but they might end up helping themselves. Keeps James keeps talking about Sumner Graham Kapowsin this week. Yeah, it definitely is a big one. Week 9 crossovers. I just want to get some clarification here while I have a chance to. This is not a loser out game, right, Matt?
No.
Yeah.
So SPSL top 6 is all in. So let's go back. So that means that GK Sumner, Emerald Ridge, Olympia, Yelm, Puyallup, all in. The only winner state loser out game is Bethel Curtis.
Okay.
Other than that, yeah, the other 6 are in, and I'm working on a document right now that'll show who's in. I'll publish that probably tomorrow after the SPSL games are done, and then I'll keep that updated as the weekend progresses. Hopefully, I'll get finalized information on Metro and 1AD4, but we'll see.
I want to bring this up here real quick. Sumner's only lost to West Lynn, okay, by like 3 or 5 or 7, something like that. It wants Graham Kapowsin to beat Sumner because it'll help Lake Stevens. Okay, we're gonna play a game. Graham Kapowsin defeats Lake Stevens. Defeats Sumner. Is Lake Stevens now instantly above Sumner, a team that beat them head to head?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
It depends. Well, let me rephrase that. I shouldn't just say no specifically. I think that if it's a close game between GK and Sumner, and I think that would sway my answer. I think Lake Stevens is probably going to beat Arlington by 2 or 3 touchdowns. So that's kind of expected here. But if GK comes out and GK beats Sumner by 14 to 17 points, who knows? Maybe that does boost Lake Stevens up. I mean, Lake Stevens does have technically a better resume with a better strength of schedule. So, who knows? Maybe that would happen.
So what you're saying is there's a lot to look at before you can instantly make that reaction.
Yeah, no, I think that there would be more to look at there. You can't really necessarily take that at face value, but I think that it's we got to go. Let's go back to what we were saying with the 1As too. Week 1, it's a completely different season from week 9. Maybe at this point, if Sumner loses, Lake Stevens is the better team. Who knows? I mean, they've grown and matured over the year. They've taken their lumps, and here they are with pretty solid resume. They'd both be 7-2 in that circumstance, and with Lake Stevens having the better strength of schedule, but Sumner having the head-to-head. So, yeah, that'd be a very, very interesting debate. I don't think that would really matter for week 10 because they're both going to be up there, and they're both going to have probably pretty easy opponents. I shouldn't say easy, but, probably easier type opponents, less challenging opponents. But then it's going to be important once you get to committee. I mean, it basically would come down to if they're 2-3, who hosts the semifinal game between the two of them.
Yeah, this is a good insight here from Coach Levesky that the score of the Camas Skyview adds to the Graham Kapowson Sumner question. Yeah, because Skyview beat Graham Kapowson after being down 17-0 in that game at home, and you can make that argument kind of like the Roosevelt Eastside Catholic game, Matt, that maybe Graham Kapowson was or is the better team overall, but wasn't able to finish the game late. I mean, after all, they did have what should have been a game-winning interception, but the interceptor didn't go down and took a hit and fumbled the ball and gave it right back to Skyview there. So I mean, there's a lot of elements to the games that are being played in 4A this week, but like we've touched upon a couple of times this show and throughout the course of the season, is that 4A is deep. 4A is super deep, and I mean, it's really, there's no place to hide. Matchups aren't really going to be that big of a deal. It's going to be just surviving each week and advancing, and whoever you go against, best of luck. It's going to be a tough game. Tie up your boots and buckle that chin strap, baby, because it's going to be a super tough game.
That is a really good question that was just asked there. That one you're just putting up on the screen. How much do computer rankings affect final seeding versus human seeding? So essentially, my stuff that'll be presented to the committees. When the committees get into the room, I don't know now if they do it over Zoom anymore or if we still are actually going and meeting in building. But if they're doing how they did it when I was there, then what's going to happen is we're all going to show up at the WIA office at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, and we will get there. They will have any piece of data available to them. They'll have RPI printed out. They'll have my stuff printed out. They'll have Scorebook Live's computer rankings. They'll have Scorebook Live's actual rankings. They'll have AP poll. They'll have Max Preps poll. They'll have everything. And then from there, we're going to go in and I'm going to, me as a committee member and the other, 9 people or so that are on the committees, I'm going to go in, I'm going to rank my teams 1 through 16. And then we're all going to submit our 1 through 16s. You're going to have one person that's going to tabulate it, calculate it, figure out what the average is. And then we put that up on a bracket. We look at it and we go, okay, what do we think? And we look at the first round matchups and we're going to say, let's say that, for example, let's say Curtis and Sumner are matched up against each other in like a 2-15 game or a 3-14 game or something like that. We're going to look at that and go, oh, those two teams have played against each other. Those two teams are in the same league. And then we'll kind of shift, we'll move somebody up or more than likely you'll see a shift in like the 14 and 15 seeds. We try not to shift the 2-3 because that's much more, there's higher ramifications there. If you're taking the 2 team and, shifting them to avoid a league matchup against a 15, they're losing out on a home semifinal game right there. So the adjustments that you'll see are going to come on the lower side of the bracket between 9 and 16. And that's usually how it goes. So at the end of the day, the computer rankings have literally no effect on the final rankings. It's just a data point that's available to the committees to where if they're trying to maybe individually break a tie between a couple teams, they can access that data and use that to maybe help sway their decision. Sometimes it's talked about after, when the bracket's filled and maybe we're talking about like an 8-9 or a 7-8 or something like that. We can kind of go back and say, hey, maybe this is what, this is maybe where they're at here. This is where they're at here. We can kind of look and see what the comparison is. And sometimes that's when I get text messages at 9:45 on Sunday morning going, hey, why is this team ranked here? Why is this team who we have higher, ranked lower here? And so, yeah, ultimately at the end of the day, the humans have the final say. The computer stuff is just there to be an assistance to them if they're trying to help determine where they want to initially vote teams to be.
Great detailed response. And in some ways, I wish I could be in the room. In other ways, I'm glad
Awesome.
I'm not.
Let me tell you. Let me tell you that it was being on the first one was even more terrifying, and I had the added layer of everyone else was a coach, everyone else was an AD, everyone else was an administrator, and there's little computer guy right over here, me, Scorzar. Back then, that's when Ryan Spencer was doing 24/7 and his stuff. He was there as well, and I felt like so out of place being there. But getting into the room, and for me, I was just on the B committee. I was just on the 2B and the 1B committee, and just being able to kind of I was just that we would start discussing teams. I'm like, oh, that team beat this team at this point, and then but this team beat this and blah blah blah, and just being able to be involved with those discussions with the X's and O's peoples. And I mean, it's not like I just sat back and did the computer stuff. I was at B games all year. Both years I was on the committees. I was driving out to Burbank like 3 times a season to check out a couple different teams. Made a couple trips up to Ritzville, just kind of anywhere in southeastern Washington here. And it's just there is a lot of responsibility comes with it, but it's really fun to kind of to be in the room and be able to kind of see the discussions that go on and the comparisons. And I get asked a lot, like, do you want to be on the committee again? And while obviously I would love to be on the committees again, I kind of like where I'm at right now, because in all honesty, like, I'm not officially on the committee, but I'm still helping. I'm still a resource for them, and it's a good place to be, and it's fun to not know too. It's fun to be sitting around at 11:01 and seeing the brackets come out and be able to have that reaction of, oh my gosh, this is what they did and all this stuff, and being able to kind of use my brain to kind of look at it and think of it from that in the room perspective of, hey, maybe this is why they went with this team here, maybe this is why they did this. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. And yeah, I respect everybody that's on there, and I love a lot of the connections that I've made from that. And yeah, just it's fun. I'm so glad to be able to have that experience and be able to share that with everybody.
Yeah, I think maybe my dying wish might be on the basketball committee at some point, because that's my ultimate sport jam. I love being on the basketball.
I couldn't do that one. There's too many games. There's way too many games for me.
There are a lot of games, absolutely. Yeah, and yeah, it's a marathon basketball. And you want to talk about teams being different than the first month of the season. By the time you get to the end, I mean, basketball is like the ultimate catch fire sport, or just come to the tournament hot at the right time, and maybe a team in front of you, has an injury, bad game, anything can happen. It's a tough sport, but we're blessed to have all the insight, that not only your computer and your data can pull from, but the expertise of actually sitting in the room and knowing what goes on in these conversations, and what ultimately the criteria is for teams and the things that you look for. I don't have a computer per se, but I have a computer. Like I remember a lot of stuff and pay attention to a lot of things and a lot of details. And usually the same things apply. From year to year, there really isn't too much that really changes. Every now and then I'll see a surprise, but for the most part, I think that the committee does a really good job, and I can see a lot of things through their lens.
Yeah, they do an amazing job. Those guys work extremely hard. It's there were times I could remember going to a certain game and bumping into another committee member there, like, oh hey, I didn't realize you were going to be here tonight. And I remember once the playoffs started, going to being on the 2B committee, still could get into any game we wanted to go to, and we ended up going to a 4A playoff game up in Mount Si. It was Puyallup and Mount Si, and just running into 2 or 3 committee members there, just like, oh, hey, how's it going? What's up? Yeah, we've already done our job, but, still going in and checking it out. And that game is one I'll never forget, just because that's when it was the kid from Puyallup went to Oregon offensive line, Iuli. I think Dave Iuli is his name. And he was a freshman during that year. And I remember sitting there on the sidelines and watching him warm up. And I shot a couple text messages to a couple of other people, and I'm just like, this is the biggest kid I've ever seen in my life. Oh my God, this kid is the biggest kid I've ever seen in my life. And they're just like, yeah, just wait till you see him play. And man, he just, reason he went to Oregon. But yeah, tangent. Yeah.
Tangents are good. Let's talk a little bit about this week, bit, and the games that we've got going on. Let's not pick them all, but let's pick some of them. But man, first thing I want to say real quick, I'm not going to pick this game, but I'll be doing Mark Morris and Ari Long Civil War. 2 teams that are 3-5 that have a bevy of scenarios in front of them. It could get real interesting in the city of Longview. So if Ari Long is to win this game, coupling that with a Columbia River win, all right? Columbia River plays winless Hudson's Bay. If Columbia River and Ari Long both win, it would be a 3-way tie in the Greater St. Helens League for 2 spots, of which those 3 teams would have to play a Kansas City tiebreaker Saturday, okay? Stay with me here. So out of the 2 winners of that, the 5th place team will then have to turn around and play a pigtail playoff game Tuesday against the EVCO number 3, which is Aberdeen, and it will be at Aberdeen. Mark Morris can put all of this to bed with a win. If Mark Morris wins, they are the 4 seed, no Kansas tiebreaker, regardless of what happens in the Columbia River Hudson's Bay game. In that case, Columbia River would have the head-to-head tiebreaker over Ari Long. So there we go. Highway to the Mike Peck zone. Absolutely. So that game is going to be a very big one. And yeah, I mean, the Top Gun offense likes to throw the ball down the field. We'll say that. And I expect there to be a lot of big plays in that game on both sides of the ball. It should be an amazing game. So I just wanted to throw that out there real quick for those who might be wanting an under-the-radar game Thursday to watch for free. Then yes, Ari Long, Mark Morris. Ari Long is designated as a home team, but they share the same stadium, so should be great. Matt, what do you got real quick before we scroll?
I'm looking at the game that I'm intrigued by this week, and it's not necessarily for the game itself, but it's for what comes next. The one I'm looking at Highland Memorial Stadium. I'm looking noon on Saturday, November 2nd. I'm looking Mercer Island, undefeated, going to play Highline, winner to state, loser out, or winner to week 10, loser out. Mercer Island is 8-0 right now, playing from the 3rd tier of KidCo. If they beat Highline here, they'll be 9-0. Where, what are they going to, where's the committee going to put them? They are going to be undefeated. They're not going to technically be a league champion, but where's the committee put them? I mean, I did get confirmation that when the week 10 matchups are released, they will not have seeds next to them. I specifically requested they didn't do that. They already were not doing that. So thank you, seeding committee. But, where's Mercer Island going to be? Are they going to be on the road? How far from the S curve are they going to be? That's the thing I'm really interested to see, and I kind of want to see it happen. So Mercer Island Highline, noon on Saturday.
I would not be shocked to see like a Mercer Island versus Evergreen, or a Mercer Island versus Kelso. That seems to be a matchup that fits the parameters for what we've been talking about all year with a sub-tier team. I'm trying to be as delicate as I can here, but maybe look to a league that is geographically not too far away. Then with Greater St. Helens League only getting 2 bids, and both those teams' computer RPI is coming in between, I think, 11 and 16 or 11 and 15. I think that's a matchup that you might see. Who's the road team there? I don't know. Maybe Mercer Island could end up being that road team. It would make sense from the standpoint maybe you get a Kelso Mercer Island game. You could have like a 16-17 designation right there. But yeah, Highline game is going to be intriguing because Highline's got some good athletes there, and they've got recent playoff experience. So it'll be interesting to see how that game goes. But yeah, definitely something to look for. I think Mercer Island will win that game.
I do too, and that's why I want to see the chaos. Let's see what happens. Let's set a precedent here. You know, could this be the thing that makes Kinko go back and go, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this tier thing?
Yeah, well, hey, we can change it from year to year. That's for sure. All right, so let's go with some important games real quick, just to point them out. We'll go faster. Eatonville at Ording, 5-3. Eatonville at 7-1 Ording. This is tomorrow night, Wednesday, by the way.
Yeah, it can be a big game. We picking this one?
Ording. Yeah, I'm just Ording.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at with that one.
Ording. This is a must-win for Eatonville. Eatonville has to have this game, but I think Ording's the better team.
Okay. Stillicum at 5. Stillicum 6-2. 5-3. Man, this was a real tough game, but my index card here says Fife is a pretty decent team, so I'm going with them. Trojans.
I'm going with Stillicum. Stillicum's been playing hot football right now against really good teams. I think it continues.
Archbishop Murphy at Seaholm. This is a Thursday kickoff.
Seaholm.
Same time. Yeah. I think Seaholm, I think they're playing really good. They got one of the better wide receivers in the 2A class too, and Andre Watson. So I think they're going to be a really difficult team to beat.
Yep, and Archbishop Murphy's coming off of a bye. So, I mean, yeah, they're going to be well rested, but could they be a little rusty?
Yeah, well, look what the bye did to the Minnesota Vikings. They haven't won since they had it.
Exactly.
Sela at Prosser, 4-4. Sela, Prosser, 5-3. Mustangs on the heels of another good win against Ellensburg.
I'm going Prosser. Sela, yeah, I think Sela's a good defensive team, but I think that Prosser's offense is better.
I'm going Prosser as well. Hot at the right time. Dangerous team entering the postseason.
100%.
Richland at Kamiakin. 5-3 Richland, 6-2 Kamiakin. Again, this is another Thursday night game.
Braves, Kamiakin.
I'm going to go Richland. Rebounding. Offense. Let's see here. What do we got else here? I'm not picking that game. Here you go. This is a good one. PL Willapa Valley, 5-3 at Adna, 5-3. Winner of this one gets second place in the C2BL Western side.
I'm going Adna.
I agree. I think Adna is a better team. I think they had a better showing. Defense held Mappavine to 27 points in their win. Okay, let's move on to Friday now. Friday games. Let's see here. Scrolly. Looks to be a game of somewhat importance here. River Ridge 5-3 at Bellarmine Prep 5-3.
I'm gonna go Bellarmine.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Bellarmine has a little bit better defense overall, and both of them have a common opponent in Kelso, and Bellarmine won while River Ridge lost. So Bellarmine. Let's see. What's some other good ones here? I mean, Odessa at Almira Cooley Heartline. I think this is an important game here for sure.
It is a very important game. Yeah, for D6 crossovers week 10. That's going to be a huge game there. Because I don't actually know what the crossovers are going to be over there. But I do know that the team that loses this game is probably going to finish third, and they're probably going to have to play on the road against.
It's a 32-team tourney, though. Yeah.
Well, not for them. They 1B still does their regional crossovers. So okay. If I remember correctly, I think 8 are coming out of the east side. So there are going to be 16 teams in there, but you're looking at the difference of being the Northeast 2 seed is into that as opposed to the Northwest 3, and possibly having to play like a Sunnyside Christian or one of those that next tier down, maybe even Waitsburg, as opposed to playing like Dayton or Yakima Tribal or Tucci. You're looking at this is a huge game for whoever wins this game, and oh man, I don't know. I gotta go with Elmira Cooley Heartline.
Yeah, I'm tempted to go Odessa here in this one, but I'm ultimately going to give the home team, I think, 6 points. I think that's probably the right number to give a home team in the 1B ranks. Kicking, not really something that you're going to see a lot of. So, I'm going to go with Elmira Cooley and Heartline, even though that, I got them at 5th in the rankings, slightly above Odessa. So I'm got to go with what I think I know, and that's ACH, Elmira Cooley, and Heartline. Let's see here. You got any games on the top of your head that you're also looking at there, Matt?
I do. Mine's an 8-man game, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I want to throw DeSales Garfield Palouse out there.
Okay.
This would be a winner being the Southeast 3 seed, loser being the Southeast 4 seed. Garfield Palouse 4-4. DeSales just lost their first game of the season to Liberty Christian, 58-0. Garfield Palouse played Liberty Christian week 1 and only lost by 28. So, and Garfield Palouse's losses are Liberty Christian, Elmira Cooley, Heartline, Wilbur-Crest, and Keller, and Pomeroy. So 4 very good losses. And this game is at Garpal. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. Personally, I think I would go with Garfield Palouse in this game.
Okay. What do you think about this Tri-Cities Prep LaSalle game? This could very well be the toughest game that LaSalle has played all season long here.
Yeah, so if I remember correctly, they actually matched up earlier in the season, and LaSalle beat Tri-Cities Prep by 7, I think. But I think Tri-Cities Prep is a different team. And I mean, I know this game is in Yakima. It's up at Marquette. I believe the last one was in Marquette too. But yeah, I believe in Tri-Cities Prep here. This is both these teams are assured top 2 seeds going into the D5 crossovers next week. They are, I think, if I remember correctly, I think the 1 seed is going to play Brewster, or no, maybe Manson, the 5 out of Central Washington, and I think 1 plays EWAC 9, so they'll play Riverview or Cleala Morala. I don't remember who Riverview plays, but whoever wins the Riverview game, they'll play the winner of this game, and then the loser I think is going to play like Manson or something like that. So I mean, it's not necessarily going to be huge for matchups and stuff, but yeah, no, I like Tri-Cities Prep in this one.
Yeah, I think that I'm going to go with LaSalle in the game matchup. I expect it to be extremely close, but best team by far that I think LaSalle is matched up against so far this season. And, it's a good thing that they aren't any risk of losing out here in this one because, it's tough to go undefeated throughout an entire regular season schedule. I wanted to check in real quick with the Graham Kapowski Sumner matchup here. Both teams are going to advance according to you. Breaking news on the show. So, with that said, I think that I like Sumner in this one, 7-1 versus Graham Kapowski 6-2. But I think Graham Kapowski is, maybe one of the better 2-loss teams in the 4A class.
Yeah, and the game is at Sunset Chevs too. So, Graham GK's got to go on the road. I'd probably lean Sumner in this one. I think it's going to be a closer game, and I think that at the end of the day, I don't think that this would be too big of a dent in GK's resume.
So next, another big game, Nooksack Valley at Linden Christian. And this is that game that I was talking about. I think Nooksack was just kind of overlooking Monty a little bit, to get to this one healthy. And having an opportunity to learn a little bit more about their team. I think this is a good bounce back week here for Nooksack Valley.
Yeah, I agree. Nooksack Valley.
Okay. I'll let you pick Seton Catholic at La Center. I will not pick this game, but Seton Catholic at La Center. 8-0 Seton, 8-0 La Center.
You're taking the Kirk Herbstreit route here. I like it. I'm going with La Center. We kind of talked about it a little bit earlier. I think the elements are going to have an effect on Seton's passing game. I think that the grass is going to have an effect on Seton's passing game. If it rains even just a little bit, and footing's a problem, that's a huge issue for timing on passing routes. And the center being at home, I gotta go with the center. Though I don't think, like I said, I don't think that this is going to be one that hurts Seton Catholic too bad. Whoever loses this game, I still see them as a top 5. I'd have them as a top 4 team, but I can still see them as a top 5, top 6 team going into state.
Yeah, I think La Center is the safer team if they lose this game. I think Seton wins it, that you're definitely going to see them as the 2 seed. Mm-hmm. And if I think La Center loses this one, I don't think they're going to drop below 4. I think it could be a little different for Seton if they lose this one. I think they could end up dropping to maybe 5, maybe 6. But I look at it and I don't know who you put above them is where I'm at. Like would I have a 1? Would I have yeah, I wouldn't though. I think a lot will depend on this game against Linden Christian with Nooksack. I know you love Nooksack. I know you do, but anyway, yeah, dude, there's even Pomeroy and Liberty Christian, both teams 8-0, playing for a perfect season this week. I want to skip to this game here real quick. This is a big one. Ridgefield at Woodland. We haven't talked about Woodland at all, and I'd be remiss to let everybody know that they started 0-2, and their only losses are to Kalama, who was fully healthy, by the way, and when they're fully good, and La Center. Other than that, they beat everybody they've played, and they're playing for a league championship. These 2 teams, Ridgefield and Woodland, met for a league championship last season in Ridgefield, and it was Elijah Anderson and company of Woodland going into the hot potato and coming away with a win. This year, Ridgefield and its 105 students that turned out for football are going on the road to take on Woodland at the Beavers Den in Glenn Flanagan's first year as a head coach. This is a huge game in the Greater St. Helens League that I would also like to see, would also maybe like to stream, but I can only be in one place at one time. Ridgefield at Woodland. Matt, I'll let you go first.
I'm going potato power. I'm going Ridgefield.
I, too, think Ridgefield will win this game and extract a little bit of revenge. And I think that they're going to be able to rotate in more fresh bodies on defense, and they're going to need every one of them to try to bottle up Elijah Anderson, who moved from running back to quarterback this season. I don't like to make claims like that. There's nobody else on the field with Elijah Anderson, but he is like the catalyst. He's the guy you got to stop. If Ridgefield is able to slow him down, then it could be I'm not saying an ugly game fast, but yeah. Woodland, you can make an argument, though, that they've been playing a little bit better this season when it comes to league play. So, and then finally, I think we'll call it quits right here. Man, this is a huge one. Camas at Skyview, and Skyview really hasn't had any luck against Camas ever. So, I mean, what makes you think that it's going to be different this year? I don't think it's going to be different this year. I'm going Camas.
Yeah, I'm going Camas as well. I've been saying that they're the best team in the state. The best team in 4A all season. And why go against them now? Yeah, I'm going with the Papermakers.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. We could obviously keep going and talking games because, there's a lot of them. And then we even got some crossovers coming up this week for some to be determined games that we don't quite know the whole picture of. And then we're more than likely going to have some playoff games or playoff tiebreakers coming up on Saturday also. I mean, we do. So like Life Christian, Cascade Christian, that'll be a big game on Saturday. Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of games this weekend. They're so hard to keep up with. So Matt and I are going to ask a huge favor. Please make sure that you use the @ symbol when you post your stuff on Twitter this week, so we can have a chance to take a look at it and try to, digest everything that's going on around us, because there's a lot of moving parts this year. First year of reclassification, first year of tier leagues. a lot of things that are still kind of unknown. So if you're not going to tag me, which is at media_N2, please be sure you do Evan's rankings. That's easier and probably the better idea anyway.
Yeah, I'll just put my PS out there for every single. If you're going to a game this week, if you're not tagging one of us, use the hashtag WAFB scores. If you use that, I'm gonna see it. Every media member around the state's gonna see it. That's kind of the one that we use. So you make sure you're using hashtag WAFB scores. Make sure you're including team names. Make sure that you're saying if you're at, you know, on Alaska Toledo. I know that would happen last weekend, but make sure you're mentioning on Alaska Toledo FB score, WAFB scores. Make sure you're doing that. That's going to help not just us. That's going to help everybody around the state. And this is the time of the year where everyone, we got to all be on the same page. Please do that. For my stuff this week, there's going to be a lot. Usually the end of the year, I'm usually up until about 2 a.m. doing stuff, but we've fast tracked this spreadsheet this year. You're going to get Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night into Sunday. You're going to get rankings every single night. Every time a game comes in, it's going to put in, it'll be updated. On Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Friday and Saturday, you're going to see my projections, who the computer sees getting into week 10 and who they're going to play. And then Sunday, once we get the stuff coming out, you'll probably hear something, there'll probably be something put out there about, what we think about, what the best matchups are going to be, all that stuff. And we'll talk about it again next week. Going to be a lot of fun stuff to talk about.
Matt, are we going to do a pick'em for the bracket when it comes out, when we get to the I guess it would be the round of 16 for every class except
Absolutely.
for 1B and for 1A? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we should do that. I think one of the things I'm going to try to do too is I'm going to put together a guess the bracket. When we next Saturday night, when the 16 or the 12 teams are confirmed for each thing, I'm going to put out a sheet and just say, here you go, here are your teams, seed them, and we'll just see who's, we'll do a bracketology sort of a thing. We'll see who's got the best seeding brain out there in the Twitterverse.
Nice. It's going to really challenge people's bias.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I usually do like if I were on the seating committee rankings, but exactly. it'd be acronyms like IIWOTH2A.
I think I'm going to make sure that when I get that sheet set up, I'm going to have a required question be alma mater.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think that there should be point deductions for how high you rank your favorite teams. They must submit a favorite team first before. Yeah,
exactly. So, submit your favorite team, who your kid goes to, where your kid's going to go to.
Yeah. What school does your son or daughter go to? Exactly. Help us out here. So yeah, I mean, I think that we got a big week in front of us. Obviously, this is just the tip of the iceberg, man. I mean, it's massive below the surface. And we just touched on a few massive games. There's so many games out there this week that are going to determine season's end or season's continuation, and who's getting ready for indoor swimming and also basketball season. It's going to be crazy. Wrestling. Yeah, someone's going to go do some winter sports here coming up next week. And it's Halloween on Thursday. Spooktacular results. Love it. Glad to hear that there won't be any seeds. I heard some complaining here, by the way, about not having seeds. It's like, is it really that important? All you need to know is that this is who you're playing and this is where it's at. What more do you need to know beyond that? And I don't think that you need to put seeds next to everything, because I think that everybody still wants to make travel somewhat light, where they don't want to do a true 1 versus 32 or something like that, to where the 32 is traveling 6 hours to get demolished.
Well, I feel like the reason why you don't want to have the seeds on the week 10 games is because then if you do that, you're essentially just pigeonholing yourself into week 10. You're looking at if you put, if you have 3A, if you have Bellevue 1, or if you put let's go let's just look at 2A. Let's go 2A. Let's say that you have Prosser at 13, you have Fife 14, and you have Clarkston 15. And then let's say that maybe Prosser plays kind of a squeaker win over, whoever 17 or whoever their team is, and the other two have big wins. If you look at that week 10 thing and you go, oh, Prosser's the better team, they're going to get the higher seed, then you really can't you can't account for what happens in those week 10 games. So
Sure.
so the committee's going to kind of have an idea of where everyone's ranked, but we won't, which will be great and add some more suspense going into seeding Sunday, which, I mean, suspense is all we need. It's what gets us going.
Answer to that question, Bolson Sports, is next Friday, not this coming Friday, but the following Friday. You're going to see Friday matchups and Saturday matchups in the crossover around week 10. And you probably won't see any games Saturday after 4:00. I would say. I think that would be the latest start time that we would see. Maybe a 5:00 game here or there, but can't imagine there'd be too many 7:00 Saturday games.
Yeah, as of now, there are a few. Actually, there's one so far, but it's a 6-man game. I could see. I wouldn't project any Saturday evening games. Maybe 4:00 on a Saturday, but you're not going to probably see any 7:00 games.
Yeah,
I hope not.
4:00's late enough, man, for a Saturday kickoff. So.
Oh, especially for the committee stuff. Like if you get, I've been harping on it for years. I think that, if you set the last game kicks off at 2 p.m. on Saturday, you could get all your seating committee stuff done Saturday night. It gives you all Saturday night to be able to do your studying, be able to get your opinions going, so that when you get together on Sunday morning, it's just like, bingo, here we go. Let's get it done. Wham, bam. Thank you, ma'am. Let's go.
Well, there you have it. Good stuff as always, Matt. Appreciate your time, man. And I've actually set a record this season for longest podcast, 2 hours, 2 minutes so far here tonight. I hope everybody didn't get bored to death, but I know we didn't. So deal with it, I guess. Thanks for being with us. We look forward to being back here next week, if possible. It is busy. So we will try to digest everything. We will have for sure a Tuesday pigtail next week between Greater St. Helens 2A number 5 and EDCO 2A number 3, which is Aberdeen. We know that much. So that definitely is going to take place. And then we'll try to figure out what we can do to work around it. But I think we'll be back again next Tuesday. We'll keep that up in the air just in case we've got scheduling conflicts because we're both parents. So
yeah, and
started for us.
Yeah, basketball season is getting ready to start, and we'll have a tiebreaker a game down here as well next Tuesday with MCC 3 and GSL 3. So yeah, I would think depending on, we'll see who's getting in that GSL HL game. We'll see if maybe that's going to be an N2 game. We'll see, but yeah, Tuesday or Wednesday next week, guys. We're ready. We're going to be amped up for week 10 and talking matchups and where we think upsets can happen, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. This is the best time of year. This really is the best time of year.
Be sure to come on out to N2 Media on Thursday. It's on YouTube, this channel you're watching on Facebook as well. We got Civil War football Thursday, and then Friday. I mean, I'm putting it up against any game, man. Probably one of the biggest games in the state. If there weren't so many other big games in different sections of the state, I'm sure all eyes would be on it. But a true top 3 matchup, in my opinion, between La Center and Seton Catholic on Friday. So be sure to come on back and check that game out. And also be sure to follow Matt on Twitter all weekend, who will be inputting data constantly and updating computer rankings. And appreciate you guys all coming out. All the great effort tonight by everybody collectively in the live stream comment section. You guys make the show so much easier to bounce thoughts, ideas off of. So we appreciate all of you. We wouldn't do it if people didn't care, and we are glad to have you all. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And thank you again, Matt, for all of your effort. Until next week, guys, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your football. Stay safe out there Halloween night. Everybody drive slow. Children are trick-or-treating, and they are hard to see. I'd like to see my loved one. So everyone stay safe out there.
Watch out for the little triceratops that's running around my neighborhood this week.
Yeah, I got a Buzz Lightyear, so it'll be awesome. So I have to go check and see if my ray gun costume came in the mail. So, all right, everybody. Thank you again for watching. Have a great night.